The following is a presentation of the Belly Up Sports Media Network.
Now up to bat, it's our injury report. Jeffrey Springs is on his way to the IL, already there, and going to be undergoing Tommy John surgery, obviously to repair his elbow. That's going to put him out for the season. Brandon, could this have come at a worse time for Jeffrey Springs?
LJ, as our title says here, and Jeffrey Spring or Springs, whatever you want to call him. There we go. Jeffrey Springs. Yeah, really, really bad timing. And, we always make the joke about Tampa and they find these pitchers out of nowhere. But he legitimately was like one of the best left-handed pitchers, I think, in the league. You had contention where he had been so strong to start off, and also last year really did show a lot. It's just so brutal for him because here's a guy on a team that desperately could use starting pitching. When you look up and down that rotation, yeah, sure, they've pitched really well so far, and Drew Rasmussen is good, and Shane McClanahan, we know what he can do, but you're still down Tyler Glasnow, Zach Eflin, who a couple weeks ago we talked about his injury, he's hurt, and now Jeffrey Springs is hurt, and this rotation is not in good shape now. Obviously, like I just said, Shane McClanahan, he's really good, and we all know that. But then the other guys, at least according to Fangraphs roster resource, Taj Bradley, who is unproven, still very young, is a top 40 prospect in the MLB, so certainly some potential for him.
I would say very, very exciting start, though, too.
Oh, yeah. Taj Bradley, very exciting, but also you have to, kind of lessen your expectations when dealing with 22-year-old starting pitchers. Drew Rasmussen, who has been very good, and LJ, honestly, we talk about a Willy Adames trade a lot, but I really think that Rasmussen could turn out to be the big piece in that deal for Tampa. And then Josh Fleming, who is a serviceable starter. He certainly had his bright spots here and there. But yes, could it have happened at a worse time? I don't. It's certainly very bad timing, just given some of these other circumstances going on with Tampa right now.
I'm going to explain it from a Tampa standpoint. I can do it in 8 words. Shane Baz, Zach Eflin, Tyler Glasnow, Jeffrey Springs. Those are 4 more than qualified starters that are currently sitting on your IL for varying points of time. And so it just makes everything more messy. It makes things messy now as you're dealing with a lot of unproven starting pitching, guys that you're probably not going to want to take all of them very deep. I think realistically, Rasmussen to start the year has certainly earned a third trip around the bend, but Bradley McClanahan, I think you probably do take long. Fleming and whoever comes up to take this 5th spot, or if they just go bullpen with that last spot, that's going to put more and more high leverage innings and stress onto a bullpen in April and May. And so that makes things messy already. And then you add in the fact that at least, Eflin and Glasnow are both going to be back at some point here. So you get that return, but it's managing the return. It's figuring out what you're doing with the roster and with the starters that are currently there once those guys are ready to come back. And so all of it becomes a headache for them. As for Jeffrey Springs, I really feel for this guy in this situation because here you go with 3 fantastic starts coming off of 2 great seasons in Tampa. Honestly, we should be talking more about how underrated this last season, 2022, from Jeffrey Springs was. A 2.46 ERA over 135 innings. This guy clearly has it, and he was ready to show the entire league this year. And now he's gotten that taken away. 30 years old. I'm certainly not going to say his career is done, but him building up to that reputation is going to be a lot harder coming back and trying to reestablish himself as a top pitcher in the league. Getting himself back in rhythm at 31 is going to be a difficult challenge, as it is for most people at any age. But then trying to reestablish yourself as one of the top pitchers of the league when you're already over 30, that's not a position you want to be in when you could have hit the ground running this year.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
And it also just feels, it feels odd that we're basically having the same conversation that we talked about last week with Zach Eflin right now, where we don't want to see this guy miss time because he's in this critical development stage. Jeffrey Springs is a little bit past that point, but now is the part where he reaps the reward of that development stage. That's why it doesn't feel fair right now.
Let me just say, if you told me, like, if there was gun to my head and I had to say whether I thought Jeffrey Springs or Zach Eflin was older, I would have never picked Jeffrey Springs. I don't know if that would have happened. And LJ, this is a guy who was a Red Sox during the 2020 season. I'm sure I know you don't really want to think about the 2020 Red Sox season with good old.
It was a tough watch, including Jeffrey Springs. I'll be very.
Ron Renicky.
Ronald
Renicky.
Brandon, we're with our injury report. Were there any other injuries you wanted to bring up?
Giancarlo Stanton out for 6 weeks.
I did this for therapy for you. I could tell you didn't want to, but I think you need it.
There's just nothing to say. We are currently operating with no bench, essentially. It's pretty rough right now. We're letting Aaron Hicks get some run out there with a nice 125 slugging percentage. So, it's not good as for now. With Stanton out for 6 weeks, Carlos Rodon, LJ, a report comes out yesterday that he's having some trouble with his back now, and will be delayed coming back, even though the injury he initially suffered was strained forearm. So he's got 2 injuries, and we have not even seen this guy pitch yet.
This is the Jacoby Ellsbury of pitchers.
No, I will.
Is it time to spin the hot take machine here?
No, please no. And I already know you're going to title this segment, "Is Carlos Rodon the Jacoby Ellsbury of pitchers?" Absolutely not. No, that is not happening, LJ. I physically, mentally, any kind of Lee cannot take this, LJ. Here we go. Is Carlos Rodon the Jacoby Ellsbury of pitchers? No.
I'm just saying there is more evidence at this point to prove me right in the fact that he has not played a game for the New York Yankees on this massive contract than there is to prove your point that he isn't.
Well, when talking about the Yankees and the pitchers that are down for them, you're talking Frankie Montas, Carlos Rodon, Luis Severino, Scott F. Ross, Tommy Kahnle, Jonathan Loaizaga, Lou Trevino. Yeah,
I hate to put like insult on you, Brandon, but I honestly feel vindicated with how horribly the Frankie Montas era has gone. Because if you remember, I was all over this. Frankie Montas as a pitcher. Like, the value was never there for any of them. At any point, any team. Otherwise, why wasn't he gone to begin the season when they first started shopping him? Like, they clearly weren't going to get what they thought they were going to get because everyone knows exactly what this guy is. Carlos Rodon is a very different guy. Carlos Rodon is that all-star caliber pitcher. Oh, kind of like Jacoby Ellsbury.